is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news and intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversations. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
With early detection comes early prevention.
Put lead in your pencil, make you feel like a champion.
Rise up again, let nothing keep you down. To live your best, hear the urologist speak. Oh yeah.
Think you're losing grip of your man, don't give up on hope.
Don't be ashamed, it's time to take control. Get some help from the urologist.
You will find
He'll help you solve your problems
on 96.9.
I'm telling you with
Good evening, Bahamas. This is the Urologist Speaks with the human urologist, Dr. Gregory Pinto. And I'm joined by two co-hosts this evening. We have both Dr. Wesley Francis and Mr. Calvin Green. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, Bombers. Good evening.
So we often talk about the physical. Today we're going to talk more about life lessons, mentality, possibly things that we wish we could have told to our younger selves. So we're trying to be mentors here through learning through our mistakes and our trials and tribulations and all the times we've fallen and gotten up. So maybe someone can learn from what we've gone through. But essentially, we want the audience to live their happiest and their most peaceful and most self-fulfilling life. And hopefully we can have a little bit of a conversation that can lead you down that road and possibly inspire somebody to make a positive change in their life. So I'm sure that this is going to be a very interesting. We're not going to be held back by any formal structure to this. We're just going to free flow and freestyle it, right, Dr. Wesley Francis?
Absolutely.
So I often start with a quote from the Bible, and this is very telling in terms of what we're trying to talk about today. Endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens overconfident hope of salvation. So that's from Romans 5, verses 4. So essentially, adversity produces strength. Developing character is a process that takes time and constant attention. Character building is hard work that always pays off, both for now and for eternity. So no one becomes happy, no one becomes successful overnight. You have to go through the dark times. You have to go through the loneliness. You need to see at your lowest point before you can actually excel and appreciate all the success that may come at a later stage. But there are far too many, particularly the younger generation in our country, who want instant gratification, do not want to put the hard work in, who do not want to soldier on for a brighter day. They want everything right here, right now. So that's why there's such a high rate of crime. That's why they have superficiality and materialism, where if somebody sees something that someone's worked decades for, without any trepidation, they're willing to break into somebody's home or break into somebody's car, snatch jewelry off somebody's neck or wrist because they don't want to work for it. Do you think this country is troubled by the obsession with materialism and superficiality, Mr. Calvin Green?
My answer to that would be yes. We are certainly troubled by that. And we can see that from the way our young people think, what they want. As you mentioned before, they want, it's like being in what I call a microwave. They want it now, but they don't want to do the work to get it. They see what you have, and they want it, not realizing the amount of work and time that you had to do to get where you are and to achieve the goals that you have. And again, as you said, if you can't find a path with no obstacles in it, it says it does not lead to anywhere. So most things that you achieve, most things that you have to apply yourself, you have to do the time in order to achieve the goal. It doesn't just happen.
Well, Dr. Wesley Francis, I don't think anyone can argue with the fact that you can be considered a national hero.
I don't think so.
Cancer is an overwhelming issue in this country that afflicts almost every single family and every single soul in this country to some degree. And you are there to be the general, to soldier everybody through it, to win that war for life, so that grandmother has another 25 years on this earth, so that mother has another 40 years with her children and her husband. But people do not see what it takes in terms of sacrifice, in terms of hardship, and living hell to become the first surgical oncologist in Bahamian history. Talk a little bit about that, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pinto. But, every journey starts with the first step, right? And I always attribute success not only to what you yourself do, but then, there are other people around you who invest in you. And when they invest in you, that they see that return later on down. I had good teachers, and I go way back to school, and teachers who, when they look at their students, see potential in the students, and then they invest in those students and put extra time into those students. And one of the couple of names come to mind, but seeing that we're talking about with Pinto tonight, your father was one of them, who encouraged me from day one, from the time I met him. Oh, you can do this, you can do this. Opened my eyes to certain things that I wasn't even thinking about at that. I just was a regular fella at that time who enjoyed school, but didn't have a dream or an aspiration. But then, teachers, and I would say Miss McCarty, she was one of those who instill in you like what you could be. And mentorship is important, because when you see and have mentors who are out there and you can emulate them, and they encourage you on, that's what helps you to progress in life. I think what's happening, because you asked Calvin, Mr. Green, about what's happening in our society. I think social media overall, and you have influences, because mentors are influencers too, right? But now you're having more influences on social media, and you see this thing and the blingness and everything that comes about instantly, this instant gratification. And it happened in reality. Yes, some people get lucky and they can score, but it's not translated across the board. And so it's those incremental steps with people who recognize your potential, help you with a vision, and invest in you. And I think that's where we see young people develop and go on to do great things. And we all have a responsibility to sort of guide that generation, or this next generation, in that direction. And so, it's a responsibility. And for me, I would say that started in school and with those great teachers.
It must be a difficult ordeal for you to essentially break bad news to people every day. Tell them that they have cancer, their life will never be the same again. They will replay that moment, every word you say, 1,000 times, probably for the rest of their life. How do you keep yourself strong, knowing the devastation that you see every day? Obviously, there are going to also be tears of joy when you give also the news on the other end of the spectrum that someone is in fact cancer-free. But that initial news where we spoke about it with Dr. Tennille Cargill, who was speaking about his lung cancer diagnosis, that everybody always complains about essentially have a life where the cup is half empty, not looking at what they have. And they always have this problem, that problem. This isn't good enough. Their car is not good enough. This is this problem, that problem. But once you have cancer, there are no other problems. All those other problems go away. There's only one problem, and that is surviving.
Yeah, survivorship is important. And over the years, I think my perspective on this has changed somewhat, right? When I have a conversation, or when I was younger, I had a conversation with a patient. You kind of, it was mechanical, where you just learned, okay, you got this diagnosis, and here's the diagnosis, and here's what we can do. But over time, everybody basically sees that in a different way. Some people take it with denial. Some people take it with, okay, all right, this is time to fight. They refocus their lives. And so it varies. But I find that...
And I'm sure that you're the brunt of some person's anger, so that could be their initial reaction as well. Blaming God, blaming you, possibly in blaming themselves for the bad life choices that might have led to their cancer.
So what I've learned over the years is that you got to try to adjust people's expectations sometimes, and also show people that this is a journey, and we're just starting here, and here's the road that we can go on, and there's some stops that we have to take to refuel. There's some other pit stops where we have to do this treatment, we got to do that treatment. But then we got to start thinking with the end in mind. And the end is survivorship, right? I think a lot of people, when they hear initially, oh man, they're really are burdened by it, and they start to think about the things that they didn't do because they're thinking death is imminent. But death is not always imminent, and that's the one thing that you have to get across to people. Having a cancer diagnosis doesn't mean a death sentence. Because therapies have changed, therapeutics have changed so much that people can live with a cancer diagnosis and still be highly functional. And so then they have to change the perspective in such that each day of their life become more meaningful, and understand that their life is a blessing, and every other day that they above ground, that find out how they can bless someone, or how they can be a witness to others to say, listen, I have this, but I'm pushing through. And so you have to sort of speak to people and have them understand that it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's more of a marathon. There's some bumps in the road, but with support and with being more meaningful and intentional about what you do with your body, with your family, with your friends, makes that journey a little easier.
And these people essentially become like your family because are going to be a part of their life essentially forever, because you always have to have surveillance. You always have to worry about recurrence and everything else. But let me say something that may alter your way of viewing life, similar to what we were just speaking about. Someone is always praying for the very things we often take for granted. And that is a problem with our society. We take so much for granted. We have a beautiful country, arguably the most beautiful country in the world, in terms of our climate, in terms of our opportunities, the economics, the financial stability, the political stability, the most beautiful waters in the world, the best fishing and boating in the world, the most beautiful beaches in the world, some of the warmest, most welcoming people, beautiful people in the world. We have a wonderful, diverse culture as well. We have an archipelago of islands that offers so much, but we take it so much for granted. With so much in the way of we wish we were living in the U.S.
Right.
Most of the people living in the U.S., Canada, England, and Germany would cut off their arm to live in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And we have that opportunity every day, and we don't seize it. So, we spoke about chemotherapy, cancer. Someone receiving chemotherapy would gladly trade places with you just to enjoy a simple meal without feeling sick to their stomach. Someone struggling to breathe is praying for just one ordinary day. Someone lying in a hospital bed, just praying that they had that opportunity to walk along the beach at sunrise or sunset with their loved ones. That is why gratitude is more than just an emotion. It is a decision that you must embrace. Never wait until life is perfect, until we are thankful. Always be thankful for what we have. It can be taken away in an instant. Choose to be thankful even in the most imperfect circumstances. Life is never going to be perfect.
Yeah, it's not going to be perfect.
And some of the hardships that we endure are some of our greatest blessings because it makes us a stronger person. All we overlook today may be exactly what someone is desperately praying for at this moment. What are your thoughts, Mr. Calvin Gray?
You know, what I would say is, and I got this from Deacon Jeff Lloyd, and I think just something that, based on what you were saying, Doc, that people should take the time to do every day. Take 5 minutes each day to meditate, to find yourself. Each day I find a spot that I go to, and I just be with me. No phone, no nothing. Just 5 minutes, because all day you hear people talking in your ear, the phone's ringing, someone's asking you a question. You just need to take 5 minutes each day to be with you. And then you take some time to dive into scriptures like you just did. Dive into scriptures. He said, particularly the New Testament. Once a week, fast from food. Once a week, you fast from food. And I try to do that once a week just to reduce all the food, all the stuff that you eat. And then give of yourself freely, expecting nothing in return. Going to do something for someone, helping a old lady, maybe get some water, or go to the grocery store, or pay some bills. And the last point is, we should all do is go to church. Go to church and thank God for the many blessings. Doc, as you so rightly point out at the beginning, we live in a country that offers so much, and yet we don't give gratitude as much as we should.
So we'll go back to scriptures. When troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. When your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. That's James chapter 1, verses 2 through 3. So essentially, the pressure from pain, trials, and tribulations, temptations will refine you so that over time you will be better equipped and more experienced to deal with them. So, as I say, pressure always is necessary to make diamonds. Overwhelming pressure, as we know, going through surgical residency, which is the most grueling hell, I think, known to men, probably on the level of being a U.S. Navy SEAL. And that's only for a short period. We go through surgical training and residence for 5 years, fellowship 2 years. That's 7 years of grueling hell that I don't think I'd do again.
Well, the thing, no, you wouldn't do it again at this phase of your life. Right?
Yes.
Because if you or I had to do that now, I mean, I don't think we would make it through. And so it's important to make to make good choices, right? And if it is that there's always a time period in your life when you are best prepared to undertake certain things. Even like there's always a cycle. When we talk about residency program, there was a cycle when we were young, when we were in our 20s, right? We had just finished medical school in our 20s. We were very resilient. You can stay up all night, maybe sometimes 2 nights in a row, get 2 hours sleep, and you back. And if I try that now, bro, I mean, it'll be a problem, right? If I'm out one night on call and there's a bad night, my whole day the next day is mash up.
Yes.
So, so it's there's times and seasons in your life when you have to ensure that you make the right decisions.
Yeah, you know.
So let me springboard after what exactly you said, Dr. Wesley Francis. What do you think is the most important defining decision a man or woman can make in their lifetime? I know that's a loaded
I mean,
question,
I
but
I don't think that there's just one, right? I mean, you were talking about the problems that we all have in life. You know, there's this book called it's called Bookends, and you know, it's just like in a library or on a shelf, you got bookends on each side, and we're always going into something, into a problem or a situation. We're always in a situation, or we're always coming out of a situation, and it's through that spectrum. Then you're faced with many choices in life. But I think what you have to really do, whatever this decision or choice that you make, you got to understand you got to live with the choices that you make, right, and make the best out of them.
and even more importantly, when you do make mistakes, and everyone is
gotta
going
learn
to
from
learn
it.
from them, and you
Right.
don't dwell on them, and you don't let it
Exactly.
define you.
Yes. So it is we in our lifetime will make multiple decisions
And
that
multiple
are-
mistakes.
And multiple mistakes. But you got to learn from them,
Yes.
right? And move on. And that is what is experience.
So
and so
you-
experience
you-
is the greatest teacher.
And you'll never experience the present if you're obsessed with the past.
if
and you'll never have a
absolutely.
future if all you think about is the past.
Yeah, if you're only living in the past, there's no future, obviously. And that's the thing. It's about learning, and you have to be a lifelong learner. And when I say that, not just academics, right? Learning from experiences, learning from relationships, learning from interactions. And that is what then creates or makes you that person you become. I am not the same man that I was 20 years ago. If I'm making the same decisions and choices that I made 20 years ago, I have not grown. I have not matured.
Well, let
And
me
that's the
let
thing,
me
right?
take this opportunity to say, what would you, with all your life experiences, and you have vast, you've been around the world, you've experienced so many different things, professionally particularly, what would you say to your 20-year-old self if you had the opportunity? What advice would you give your 20-year-old self from all that you've learned in life in the last 20 years?
Boy, that's a tough one. You know what I say to my 20 years, because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life.
Well, let's pose this to Calvin and come back to you. Wesley.
Yeah. Let Calvin decide
Well,
that one.
The thing is, you know, as I reflect on my own life, I would certainly slow down. And what I mean by that, when I was younger, you know, when you're young, you don't really think about what's happening in the future. So you're moving at a very, very fast pace. You want to do everything. You don't really think through what I call the process as you do now. And so if to my younger self, I'd certainly slow down. I would try to make better choices, because I certainly made really, really terrible choices in my life as I you know, grew and developed, and even in my career path. So you know, I think the most important thing is to have slowed down and think through life for the future, as opposed to just living in the present, thinking that you will never get old. I never thought I would be 60 at the age that I am, because you know, you can be young forever.
You know, and Calvin, I'll as you spoke, it's something resonated with me, right? What would I say to my 20-year-old self? I had an obsession with perfection. I had an obsession with
To your
you know,
detriment, you think?
yeah, because when you're obsessed like that, you miss out on the things in life that refine you. Because you know, when you're too ultra focused on one thing, then you're not well rounded. And the time that you spend worrying about this outcome you could have spent in some other meaningful interaction. And so I would say to my younger self, just like he said, just chill. I mean, whatever happens is going to happen in a way. I mean, if you prepared enough and you did what you were supposed to do, the circumstances, the outcome is going to be basically what you prepared to do. And rather than not allowing the process to mature, you worry and stress and you sometimes freak out, and because you are not allowing the process to unfold, and the outcome, what I would have found, would have been the same, but you could have chilled and enjoyed yourself. Like, I don't think in my 20s and when I was in school and in residency that I enjoyed life as much as I could have. I didn't have to. I mean, I'm happy that I was, I did what I did in a sense, but I could have enjoyed life more.
Well, I'd like to put forward that the most important and life-defining decision is who you marry. I mean, it can make you or break you, and it's one of life's truly greatest blessings in finding your person in a world with 8 billion people. I mean, the person that is going to be with you in the most an often terrifying and very unkind world where you have little control over many things, that you have that one person who's going to hold your hand and you're going to hold their hand. And in life, pain is coming.
Yeah.
Tragedy is coming. Obstacles are coming. Suffering is coming. It's inevitable. But if we can hold that one special person's hand through all of it and overcome life's obstacles together as a unit, as a partnership, it's ride or die, us against the world, the joy will be that much sweeter because we have each other to share it with, and the pain will be a little softer because we'll have each other to hold on to one another. And that's in my opinion, one of life's greatest blessings.
No, I think so, and I believe what you speak of as being intentional about relationships, and I think relationships is what gets you through difficult times, whether that's with a spouse, whether it's with family, or with friends. We shouldn't take for granted those relationships, and with everything else that we do. That we try to be successful with, you have to be successful in that. But in order to do so, you have to be intentional.
And then let me just say one thing, sorry, Calvin, that what we started alluding to earlier at the beginning of the show about instant gratification,
Right.
where you said, Calvin, the microwave world where everybody wants everything right now, that's the way relationships are going in the last decade or so in terms of dating apps. All you gotta do is swipe right, swipe left, swipe right, swipe left, and everything is right there. You don't get to know anybody. You don't really get to understand someone's values. You don't nurture a relationship. Everything is just instant. In fact, I wrote an article, which I do every week in the health section, lifestyles section of the Nassau Guardian this week, about dating apps. Studies have shown it's led to a scourge and a rise in sexually transmitted illnesses. That's the same thing. You don't really have a connection with something. Everything is instant. Everything is just about pleasure. Everything is about what you see. It goes a lot deeper than that in terms of building a relationship for life and a partnership in a marriage.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur in that, and as I look at my own ordeal, with what I went through with prostate, and then my wife, and if we weren't there for each other to move each other through these different, what I call challenges of life, it would have been that much more difficult. And we were there for each other, I for her, and she for me. And when you find that partner that you can do that with, it makes life so much easier, because you say to yourself, success is nothing if you really don't have someone to share it with. I don't care how successful you are, if you don't have someone to share it with, it becomes nothing. And you need that.
Well, I want you to listen to this quote carefully. The devil knows your name, but only will refer to you by your mistakes. God knows your mistakes, but only calls you by your name. So when someone comes into your life and tries to define you by your mistakes, you already know that they are devils in your life and that you need to banish them. So it's always so important that you surround yourself with true friends.
Absolutely.
And sometimes your cousin is not your friend. Sometimes your brother or your sister are not your friends. You have to sometimes walk away for your happiness and your own sanity.
Yeah, some relationships you find are transactional.
Yes.
And I think as an individual, you have to recognize the transactional relationships, and not, because they don't, transactional relationships doesn't really build on your inner being.
Well,
know?
going back to your profession, when someone is faced with cancer, then you know who their true friends are. You then know who are those who truly love them. And sometimes it's unfortunate. You got to face tragedy until you see the true people around you. So let's talk about more about strength and perseverance in this true, cruel, and difficult world. So you essentially you can't break a person who's not afraid to be alone. If someone is willing to shed persons that are negative in their life and they're not afraid to be alone, they have a strength you have to admire. So who is not afraid to lose so-called friends or to be rejected? There's a strength in that. You cannot break someone who has faced their demons and brought them into light. You cannot break a person who has turned their wounds into wisdom. Learn from your mistakes. Don't torture yourself with them.
Yeah.
We had Honorable Jeffrey Lloyd on twice, and he spoke about learning from your mistakes and not letting it define you, and don't let it sink your future. You got to let go. You got to let go. You got to forgive yourself sometimes, and you got to let go for the mistakes you made. And you can't regret, because everything that happened in your life, good and bad, led you to who you are now and led you down the path that you have. So every blessing in your life may not have happened if you didn't go through hardship or tragedies.
Well, the thing about it is, Doc, you have to be what I call faithful to something. Faithful to something. And so what are you faithful to? What are you faithful to? When things get tough, do you run away? Do you fall apart? When a relationship is challenged, do you stay or do you go? When your job is not going the way you want, do you stick it or do you walk away? When a habit is not producing the results you want, do you stick or do you continue on? So life is never an easy journey. We have days when we ask, where's God in all of this? Where is he? Is he with me? Is he not with me? I mean, question. But that's because you've got to be faithful to something. Faithful to your wife, your children, your church, your country. You got to be faithful to something.
Yeah, sometimes the hardship is what in your life. If you didn't have the easiest of childhood, Dr. Wesley Francis, in terms of finances and everything, and opportunity. Don't you think that made you a more determined person that can persevere through anything? If you had everything, if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, do you think you would be the person that you are?
Listen, let me just say this, right? I just look at my children, and my perspective on life is very different from my children's perspective. Okay, they've grown up in a very totally different environment, and the things that they care about or they take for granted is things that I never had, and so you can see that, but the way that I view life through that lens that I grew up. And so I am very careful about certain things. I am careful about my investments. I am careful about the company I keep. I am careful about the people who I surround myself with. And I am careful because that's a lens that I have on, right? That I look through, and when you look through those lens, that's the experience that you have that then guide your choices that you make.
Very well said, yes.
You know,
So I think this is going to be very thought provoking. People give you what they have and not necessarily what you deserve. So what they give you says much more about them than it does about you. So because, for example, you might meet someone who cannot give you what they don't have. Someone may not love you or may not show you love or may not show you empathy because maybe they don't have any love in their life or no one ever showed them any love in their life. Someone who doesn't respect themselves cannot really respect you. You have to walk a day in someone's shoes. Sometimes when you're looking for something from someone, you need to realize that you need to be that power and tower of strength for them, instead of the other way around. Maybe they need your help instead of you looking for help from them. So someone without inner peace cannot bring peace and tranquility into your life. If someone, all they have is chaos, all they want to do is row and curse and complain and cause disruption, you'll never have any peace if you're around them.
right?
And that is unfortunately caused a lot of marriages to break down because a man in particular wants to go home and have peace and tranquility. What about what you deserve? So what you deserve, that is something that you give yourself once you decide what you will accept and not accept from others. Never accept disrespect. What do you think about that, Calvin?
Well, absolutely. And one of the things I always say is you cannot give what you don't have. There's no question about that. If you've never received love, if no one never, cuddle you or tell you what you mean to them, how can you experience that? How can you give it? People are at war with each other. People hardly say hello to each other. And I always use this analogy. People, in the Bahamas, we've come to a point where I think where we think we have arrived to a level of social being that we don't really need each other anymore. I mean, because you drive a nice car and you have a nice job and you wear nice clothes and you could go wherever you go. We think we live in a society where I think people have become really, really disconnected. And so where do people find peace and happiness?
And how do you define happiness?
Well, I've got one thing here to say. People that are happy make whatever decision they make that decision because they're happy. That are happy make the best decisions. People energize themselves to a higher level of productivity and enthusiasm when they're happy. People use a completely different vocabulary when they're happy. Will say it and make it happen when they're happy. So happy people create a climate for expectation and not for depression.
I don't believe anyone who's ever been on their deathbed has ever thought about the cars they had or the houses that they owned or the jewelry that they wore or the wealth that they accumulated or the number of hours they spent at their occupation. They're thinking about their family. Are their family going to be all right? Have they instilled the right values in that family? Have they made a contribution to society as a whole, made it a better place?
Doc, it's too late then.
Exactly.
If it's too late.
But we have a society that is obsessed by that materialism. That is not what defines happiness, and that is not what is most important in this world. Obviously, everybody wants to be comfortable. You don't want to have to go to bed hungry. You don't have to worry about paying this bill and that bill and being having your property foreclosed upon or everything else. But once you have a level of comfort I think that they're more important endeavors to pursue.
But I want to clarify. I don't want people to think that I think that when you achieve all these things, that I have something against it. That's not the point at all. The point is that I think what happens is we become disconnected, and I say that you think that you become better than the person. When you walk down the street, the fellow who's sweeping the road, can you not say hello to him?
Yeah.
If he don't sweep the road, you can't drive on a nice road because he didn't sweep it. If you walk into your office and you don't say hello to your cleaner, how are you going to have a nice office if she isn't there to clean your office?
Well, just look at some of the occupations that are the foundation and hold our society together and actually are probably the most important for our future. Teachers, nurses, police officers, these persons do not get the reverence that they deserve. They do not get the respect that they deserve, and they don't get the financial remuneration that they deserve. But yet, they are probably the most important persons as a group that we have in our society. So you can't define somebody by the materialism. You have to define them by what they do for others, what they contribute to, what is their legacy, how they touch other person's lives. So a teacher may not be wealthy, they may be living month to month, but they may on their deathbed say, you know what, there are more than 5,000 persons that I've touched and changed positively in this world and changed the course of our nation because of what they've sacrificed. And it's not an easy profession. The police who keep us safe, the nurses who look at the Princess Margaret, they always get living hell and backlash and everything else. All the people who are criticizing, not one of them could probably endure being a nurse for 2 days.
Yeah.
They don't know the living hell that it takes to have to be there in the middle of the night with 40 patients you have to deal with, and everyone has their own problems and everything else, and everyone is going through hell. And
But Doc, isn't that part of being? Isn't that I can't? While I understand what you're saying, should I be? I mean, if I'm one of those patients in there, because you got to deal with 40 people, I mean, I may be one of those 40 people. So what am I supposed to do?
I would say at least give them some gratitude and say good morning or good evening, and don't. If you're a male on the orthopedic ward, for example, and the only thing you have a problem is your broken leg, don't sexually harass somebody's mother or aunt or grandmother. Show respect for them, for what they do. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Courtesy and respect.
Courtesy and
Value
respect,
them,
you know? Yeah.
because you are laying in their bed and you need them. So show them respect.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do we do when we're talking about happiness? If you truly want to be free, we spend so much of our lives trying to make others happy, trying to fit in, trying to meet other person's expectations of us, trying to become the person that others want us to be. We lose ourselves with the expectations of our society and others around us. For others, the further you travel away from the true freedom and self-fulfillment that you deserve in this world. We only have one life. Let's value that one life and let's be true to each other. No one is going to remember you in 100 years because everyone on this earth is going to be dead. Again, I'll go back to on your deathbed. Are you going to be worried about what your neighbor thinks about your car, or what your colleague at work has to say about your watch or your new Gucci shoes? No, that's all trivial.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not worried about that now.
Steve Jobs, when he was, I think there was a commencement address that he gave, and he talks about focusing on what matters, and he noted that facing death helps eliminate external expectations, pride and fear, having only what is truly important, and I think that's. When you acknowledge in your mortality, it helps you to avoid the fear of loss, and encourages one to follow your heart and looking from within what the things that are important. And so all of those things, all those expectations or people's expectations of you just disappear.
Yes, yes.
And you then now have to recognize what is truly important in life at that time.
Well, I'd like to add that when you reach a certain age, you really don't care what people expectation is of you. I gotta tell you that because when you reach a certain age, because there's a period in your life when you have to live for you. Whatever you think, people will always have opinions about this, that, about what you. I don't spend too much time worrying about other people's opinion. I spend time worrying about what makes me happy, and when I wake up each day, what can I do? I really don't spend too much time thinking about how this person thinks that I'm dressed, what kind of car that I'm driving, what job I have. I don't spend no time on that at all.
Well,
I spend time on Calvin.
Well, the truth about growing older, at 20, you worry about what everyone thinks. At 40, you stop trying to please everyone. At 60, you realize most people were too busy living their own lives to judge yours. So the happiest life begins the moment you stop living for other people's opinions and expectations.
Yep.
Very, very true. Very, very. That's why I'm so happy.
But for a lot of people, it takes them going into their beyond middle age for them to realize that fact. So, I mean, to be happy, you must first eliminate two things: the fear of a bad future and the memory of a bad past. So, stop worrying about what can go wrong and stop obsessing over what already went wrong. Live for the moment because you don't know if that moment is promised to you tomorrow.
Well, you see, if you have a challenge, rather than worry, you have to figure out how to work out that challenge. There's no point worrying about the challenge itself. You got to work out, so, okay, I have a problem. So how do I deal with this problem? Worrying about the problem doesn't solve the problem.
No.
You got to figure out how it is that I could solve this problem because worrying won't help. That ain't gonna get you the problem. How can I deal with this problem and move ahead? Dr. Wesley, I know you wanted to say something about that.
No. It's true. I mean, I always tell folks, right? Why don't you wait until you actually know what the problem is and start worrying then? Don't worry before. Because that's just wasted emotions, right? I mean, but let's be honest though. It's hard to say. Sometimes it's easy to say these things because they come a little cliche. But sometimes when we face difficult challenges in our life, I think what makes us worry is uncertainty. And an uncertain future is not something that people want to experience. And that is what causes us to fear and causes us to get anxious because we then misjudge sometimes what the outcome is going to be, or we fear that outcome. So, again, we all worry. We all are fearful. And sometimes, we have to sometimes let go and said, accept whatever the outcome is going to be. And I think when you accept the outcome, especially if you have no control of the outcome, then it is in that moment, I think you find some level of peace. Okay? Because then you can let go of that negative emotion of anxiety.
Very well said.
That's what we do.
Very, very well said. I think about it this way. If every single morning you woke up, you were given $86,400 to spend within that 24-hour period, and whatever amount of money you left behind, it just magically disappears. And then when you wake up again, you get another $86,400 that you must spend wisely. Obviously, you're going to spend every single dollar, and you're going to spend it in the best way possible to make the greatest change in your life, in your family's life, in the life of others. That's the same way you must think about life, because every 24 hours there's 86,400 seconds, and every one of those seconds you should never waste. Every one of those seconds you should treasure, because before you know it, you're going to be 95 years old if you're lucky, and you'll want to know, where has life gone by? What have I done in this life? Have I spent 90% of my life trying to impress others, obsessing about what others think of me, worrying about people praising me, defining myself through what people's other expectations? You'll never, ever, ever be happy. And those people who look at others and judge them, what does that say about their own life? They should be worried about their own life and not others as well.
Well, you really have to take what they, like the Bible say, the speck out of your own eye before you can take this, speck out of somebody else. And most people are concerned about other people's business as opposed to their own, and they got more problems than the person that they're concerned about. And one of the things I learned from listening to one of the Oprah Winfrey show, where she gave this example. I always remember this example, that she had a difficulty with one of her friends. They weren't speaking or something like that. And she is all upset with the person. And she saw the person, and the person who she's upset with is having a great time. I mean, she's not even concerned about whatever the difficulty or the challenge is between the two of them. And so she said to her and to me, that was a powerful lesson. You there worrying about what's happening with this relationship between, and the other person don't care what's going on. They're moving and having a great time, and you're spending all your time worrying about what's happening.
Negative energy.
Negative energy.
Yeah.
There's no time for wasted negative energy in your life. So everybody has the potential to be great. But the problem is that most people misunderstand what greatness truly means. Greatness is not making millions of dollars or owning lavish possessions or being better, quote unquote, than other people. There is no better than anybody. We're all God's children. Greatness is simply becoming everything you are capable of becoming at the highest level possible.
Yeah.
And once you know that, you will have a happier life and a happier existence.
Well, at this stage in my life, I keep thinking of how can I help other people? How can, if you see the fellow begging on the road, what can you do? And most people say, well, you don't give him any money. But the thing is, what he does with the money is not your concern. If he says to you, he's hungry and he needs the money, give him the money. What he does with the money, him and God will talk about that. But so I think that when you reach at this stage, you want to help more people. What do you do to help more people to achieve their goals? As Dr. Wesley Francis say, talking about mentorship, about the young people, so that we can have what I call a brighter future. We can help more young people who are better socialized, who love better, who can take care of our country, who can take care of their family. These are the kinds of things in life now that we should really be focusing on. Even a better government. I think one of the, and not to get political about it, but I think one of the most vexing things about our country is it could be so much better. And I think that's where the frustration is in most Bahamians.
I totally agree. So as you reflect on your life, Dr. Wesley Francis, and you know that there's so many lost souls out there, the younger generation, particularly young men who see no future, see no tomorrow, have nothing that they live for, essentially. What can you say to them to inspire them to be better than they ever thought they could ever be?
I think people just got to recognize their purpose, right? Which it's not easy, because some folks are just born into circumstances that they don't see purpose around them. And what they see around them, because we tend to imitate what we see around, especially kids, right? What we see. So if you see a drug dealer, you see that's the way they live, then boy, that's the way you're probably gonna live. If you grow up in a battered home and you're gonna learn and internalize the battering process. So there has to be at some point an inflection point where you recognize that you are somebody and you have a purpose in this life. And I think when you do find that purpose, and sometimes it takes others to show you that purpose, and this is why the mentorship and why we should always help people, because sometimes you guide folks who are blinded by their circumstances. And when you get them out of that and make them realize their purpose, then they can then believe. Because believing in oneself is important. And when you grow up destitute and you don't know where your next meal is coming from and all of that, and everything around you is so difficult. There's joblessness, there's inflation. Some people term that the misery index. When that is all you see, then it's hard to believe that you can become somebody. But it is when you stop in that moment and believe in yourself, and sometimes bet on yourself, I think that's where you tend to achieve success.
And I think a very sad statement in regards to our society is actually the more success you have, the more hate you're going to have thrown upon you.
Well, absolutely.
It's a black crab syndrome, and I always like to quote one of my mentors, Dr. Charles Diggis. It's very lonely at the top.
It is.
And you'll have more hate, more persons trying to cut your throat, stab you in the back than you ever thought possible. I don't think it's all roses once you achieve success. In fact, even more so, then you have to realize that you can't listen to the noise. You can't listen to the haters. You can't let people tear you down, even rise to another level.
Well, you just have to know who you are and stay true to yourself, the core. And I think it's a difficult journey to knowing thyself. And when you know yourself and you understand your core values, then the superficial things around you don't change the core values that you have. And I believe that is, how we have to live. And that's the noise in the market. Because there's always going to be random noise, always. In everything, there's random noise. And so that core values has to be your North Star that gives you that direction.
I mean, I've said this before, and I truly mean it. Young persons, you don't need a dozen friends.
No.
You just need those close, true friends. I remember a story I've heard many times, and it's been said. A 5-year-old went to the father just before he went to school Friday, and he said, "Dad, can you invite all my friends in my class, everybody I know in my class, everybody I know from church, all of my friends my age, to a party tomorrow for my golf course?" And the next day, the son went to the party, and there were 3 persons there. And the boy started to cry. And he said, "Dad, I thought you promised to invite all of my friends, everybody in my class, everybody I know in church, everybody in the neighborhood." And he said, "I did. But I didn't tell them they were coming to celebrate your birthday. I said that you were going through hardship and that they really needed to be there for you, and it's going to be very difficult, but please come and console you." And he said only 3 people showed up, and he said those are your 3 true friends, and those are all the friends that you need. And that says a lot. That's a life lesson.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So don't look. You don't have to be the most popular. You don't have to. This is a world of influencers where we judge somebody's success based on how many followers or how many likes.
It's crazy, man.
It's an absolutely insane world for our young people, and a confusing world full of chaos for our children to be growing up in. But they need to be true to themselves. They need to stay away until a certain age, and even limit their social media, because it can be a very negative. It can drive you in a very dark place. It can basically mold your personality. It can make you anxious. It can make you full of self-doubt. There's so much in the way of anonymous cyberbullying that anyone can say anything about anyone without any repercussions from the comfort of their home, on their tablet, or on their phone, and it can be destructive to the point we've seen hundreds of cases, if not thousands, throughout the world of persons being led to suicide or depression or not wanting to go to school because of the cyberbullying. So in this very difficult and trying world, know who your true friends are and listen to your true friends. So you be there for them, they will be there for you. If you're going to live for what people think of you, then you'll never, ever be happy. And that's a true statement. And I think we can all live by that.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about some of the more momentous occasions in your life, what do you think are some of the defining moments of your life, Mr. Calvin Green, both positive and negative? Obviously, you've spoken with the greatest of adulation about your mother and how she's defined your life and made you the man you are. But can you enlighten us a little bit more about some of the positive things that have happened in your life? Have you been touched by any mentors? Have there been any life experiences that have opened up your mind and your heart and put you on a righteous path?
Well, as I was growing up, I always say there were many people who shaped how I view life and what I think about life. And I always say with a mentor, you always have to take the best of what they have to offer. And if you can, implement it into your own life. Yeah, my mom was a great impact on me because she was a teacher. And one of the things of being the son of a school teacher was that you had to be for her the best you can be. I remember sometimes I couldn't even go and play. She would have us all at the table and summertime you're supposed to be able to play. No. That's a time when you studying and you got books out and you're trying. She's telling you when you come when school open, I only want A's. You can't get no C, no B. You must have A. So she was a really, really great impact on me. Then when I entered the hotel business, there were certain general managers who came in. They were really, really great general managers, and so you take a little bit from that. And I must say now that I'm married, my wife Francis, she's a great impact on me. Because she don't let me get away with nothing, and so that's it's like something in your ear. You always
And never let anyone. Sometimes it's very hard to say this because you're living it and that's all you know. Even if it's your grandmother or your mother or your father telling you never be anything, you'll never amount to anything, you're not worth anything. You gotta believe in yourself. I know it's difficult, those are only words that I'm saying, but you gotta believe in yourself. I have had persons in my life told me, don't even bother to go to urology because you'll never finish. You'll never be a success. You don't have the personality to be a surgeon. Look, now I have a national radio show. I'm humbly, and I say that through the grace of God, I'm a household name. I have persons come to me in the food store asking to take a picture with me or shake my hand, or I've had persons in the highest hierarchy of our society call me a national hero. But I have persons who told me for years, you'll never be anything, you'll never amount to anything. And I see these people, and they can't even look me in the eye. So, yourself. You can always become, don't let anyone define you. And some of the most treacherous in your life can actually propel you to the heavens and into the stars. Any closing remarks, Mr. Calvin Green?
I would like to leave this I said this last week, but I'd like to leave this again. It says, by the great Lou Holtz, it says, if you want to be happy for an hour, eat a steak. If you want to be happy for a day, play golf. And if you want to be happy for a week, go on a cruise. If you want to be happy for a lifetime, put your faith in Jesus Christ. I think that's a great saying. I love that.
Absolutely, and I just second that.
Any other closing remarks yourself, Dr. Wesley Francis?
I think we just have to be intentional and purposeful.